Chair, Senator Warnock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chairman Powell, for being here again today. Georgia is in a serious housing crisis, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta has designated owning a home in Atlanta as unaffordable to the average home buyer. But it's not just a city problem. It's urban, it's rural. Haralson County, a county with a population of less than 30,000, is also rated as unaffordable. In the midst of this housing crisis, the Federal Reserve Bank, which has a tough mandate and a tough time of managing inflation, has raised the federal funds rate by 0.75%. This means mortgages are about to get a lot more expensive for families. Chairman Powell, as the Fed raises its interest rates, what is the Fed doing to prevent this rate increase from further exacerbating the housing crisis?
Well, so by raising rates, we're clear. What you're seeing is a slowing housing market now. You're seeing because of higher interest rates, mortgage rates have gone up pretty substantially, and you're seeing a slowing in the housing market. And that should mean, one of the things that should mean is that housing prices should stop going up at such remarkably rapid rates. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've had, a very, very hot housing market all around the country, and what should take place is, as demand moderates demand for housing moderates for new and existing homes, you should see prices stop going up quite so fast. You're also going to see fewer home sales and just generally a lower rate of activity in the housing market. So really what needs to happen is housing supply and demand need to get back into better alignment. And the part of that we can control is really by moderating demand so that prices stop going up quite so much, and that we can get back to a housing market where supply and demand are. Now, we don't control supply, and there are issues in this country around housing supply. It's harder to get land and lots and things like that. It's harder to get people to work. So there are supply-side constraints. If you meet with builders from around the country, they will tell you that we have a longer-term issue as a country around creating enough housing supply. That is not something that the Federal Reserve can do anything about, but it is an important issue.
Right. Notwithstanding that, mortgages are clearly, at least in the short term, are about to get more expensive. And it seems to me that what would be helpful is if the Congress would pass my Down Payment Toward Equity Act to help first-generation home buyers afford their first home. What effects do you expect the Fed's interest rate increases will have on well, let me put it this another way. The Federal Reserve helps enforce the Fair Housing Act and the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. What plans do you have to ensure that as interest rates increase, everyone still has access to a fair, reasonable price mortgage?
So the higher interest rates don't change our very important obligations under the fair credit laws that we enforce. And so we'll continue to enforce those, transparently and aggressively. It is true, though, that mortgage rates have gone up, and that will slow down demand, and that will be there's some pain involved in that for people paying higher mortgage rates, and also some people will be priced out of the mortgage market. But that is ultimately what needs to happen if we are to get back to price stability, to a place where people's wages aren't being eaten up by inflation. Right. So the greatest pain would be if we allow this high inflation to just continue.
I guess
will be right. Yeah.
Right, and I guess my point is that in the meantime, the folks who are on the margins of the marketplace in the first place, the issue is how do we protect them as much as possible. Related to that, when Secretary Yellen was here, she stated that the Federal Reserve needed to not only be skillful, but she said, quote, lucky to ensure, quote, a soft landing. I don't like counting on luck when the economic safety of Georgians, particularly those at the margins, is at risk, which is why I'm doing what I can here in the Senate. I've introduced a couple of bills to lower the price of gas, to lower the cost of groceries and other everyday goods, to cap the cost of insulin and other medication. And I've held the White House accountable to pursue investigation of price gouging of ocean carriers. And I've supported bipartisan legislation addressing the same issue that just became law. How can Congress lower costs for Georgia families? And what steps can Congress take to support the Fed and ensure a soft landing?
So I guess I'd be reluctant to give you advice while we're trying so hard to do the job that you've actually assigned us, which is to get inflation back down. But I think those are authorities that those of you who run for elected office have, and we don't have as mere appointees. So that's really up to you.
But you would agree that the folks at the margins of the economy are feeling the most pressure and pain, and that has to be addressed.
I think that's always the case, and in the case of inflation, it's really that if you're spending every dollar that you're intaking on the bare essentials of life, and the cost of them goes up 10%, you're in trouble right away.
Right.
Whereas middle class people and people better off than that, they've got some resources, some ability to deal with it. So that's why it's such a priority for us to get on top of inflation before it does become entrenched. Inflation's only now been around for, it really didn't start until March of last year. So it's not at all too late for us to get this job done and get back onto the kind of path we all want to be on.
Thank you so much. I'm concerned about this, and it's why in the meantime I've introduced several bills to lower the cost for essential items like gas and groceries and medication. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator.